and welcome. This is False Start, a college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm John Buhler, staff writer, fanside.com. I'm joined today by a man who has seen some things. He went to Yellowstone, he saw a geyser, he saw some wildlife, but I don't think he saw an escalator because there's only two in that entire state. Cody Williams, content director, fansided.com. How the hell are you?
Honestly, very, very happy that we didn't see escalators. One of my irrational fears in life is escalators. I will take them. Like it's not like, crippling fear or anything like that, but just not a fan. Like the idea of getting caught in an escalator just really freaks me out, and it has since I was a little kid. So very happy about that. But I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
Pretty good. I mean, I know you've probably seen this there on the Twitter with our fan-sided colleague Josh Paredes, who goes to movies every week and complains about the escalator not being in operation there in San Antonio. I'm like, just go to a different movie theater or just blow it up and build a new one because this place sucks.
I mean, in fairness, one of the, or like not in fairness to Josh, we love Josh, but this is not
Yes.
in fairness to him. I feel like of the many things in this world, the escalator is probably the most functional when broken because you can still walk it and use it as stairs. So I don't know what the complaint there.
I mean, it's like the same thing with like a bench that's broken. I guess you could sit there if you want to.
It's true.
But I mean, maybe they'll just rename the escalator after him, to be honest with you, the
That's
memorial
right.
escalator. Wait, did he die in this escalator? No. No, he just funded it. Like
He
Arthur
just
Blank
he just
funded
talked about it a lot.
Arthur Blank is passionate about escalators and Josh is passionate about no, Arthur Blank passionate about he's about hardware, hot dogs, and children's hospitals, and Josh is passionate about escalators. This is false
That's right.
start. Long weekend too. We're both running on absolute fumes right now. So if you thought that the 3 yards to the cloud of punt from over the weekend was great, this episode is right there for you.
That's right. Yeah, we're I think I might be like on a little less fumes than Saturday night, but I mean it's not like we're not thriving yet. I mean we're always thriving, but we're not thriving.
There may be chlorine gas outside. I didn't know that walking a dog. And I'm just like, okay, maybe that's why I feel so stoned all the time. I didn't do anything. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, and also just wanted to say top of the podcast, I know it affected some people in your area, your neck of the woods, definitely affected some people in my neck of the woods. Our thoughts with
Yeah.
everybody on the East Coast after Hurricane Helene came through. Not a good situation. My hometown's pretty underwater. Pretty, it's not a good scene out there. So, hope everyone's doing okay, and reach out to us if we can do anything to help. We'd love to.
Yeah, shout out to the peeps at Asheville, trying to make it through this time. It is not looking great. Buckhead, I think, is not underwater anymore, so that was a positive. Sandy Springs, we'll see. But yeah, I think it's all because that guy wouldn't eat dog poop out of a cup for Florida State. And the Hurricane's like, I'm going straight through Tallahassee.
Yeah, I mean, it really all comes back to 3-2-1 null. Like that's really what that's the only like everything bad in the world comes back there. Like, we saw the Saint Bill Snyder. I'm not going to go into what he did, but we saw that it happened, and look at what Kansas State did. Went out and got a big win over Oklahoma State. So let that be a lesson to you. Don't make promises you're not going to keep.
Yeah, I think about Bill Snyder is he loved him some Taco Bell, or he still does.
That's right. 5 layers of it.
We probably false started 5 layers here. So we're gonna go with our first and 15 with from Ward Manual's manual, the latest on the AP Top 25 poll. Biggest takeaway is obviously Alabama going up from 4 to 1, Georgia only falling to 5. Indiana's ranked now. That's pretty cool. They're at 23, but no one likes you when you're 23. Any thoughts about the AP Top 25 before we really get into our delicious playoff projected brackets?
So I definitely have a few thoughts. My first thought is I was shocked with how little Georgia dropped in the rankings, going from 2 to 5 after that loss. Granted, they made it look a lot better in the end, so it was a close game, top five matchup. You don't want to penalize them too hard. The more I've thought about it, though, I think it has a lot more to do with the teams around them than it does Georgia necessarily itself and them trying to rank them properly because Oregon's right behind them at 6. And again, we're still not impressed with Oregon. They beat UCLA handily. It wasn't really a game, wasn't really close, but they haven't proven anything. So like what are we going to do with them? Penn State is the one that I would probably like have some qualms with, like because I we both are high on Penn State. We like what they're doing, and we think that they are better than the seventh best team in the country. But Miami almost got beat. We watched Mizzou have the week off, and then the week before that, they were going down to the wire with Vanderbilt. You have Michigan, who has looked like Michigan, a very flawed team, a quality team, but a flawed team, very much so. USC, who lost to that Michigan team, Ole Miss, who just lost. So, like, those are the teams coming after Georgia. It would be hard to justify dropping them below a lot of those teams. So, like, while it might look weird, and why, like, in my projections, I had them dropping to, I think, eighth or ninth. And so, like, seeing them at 5 did surprise me. But the more I thought about it, the more it actually does kind of make sense.
Yeah, I was looking at it. I'm like, I guess it's 5. I was shocked there. I thought they would be 7. I thought they would put Penn State and Oregon over them. And right there with Miami, I kind of feel with those two teams, or those three teams in particular, it's like you're still undefeated. Georgia's not. Georgia just played what is now seen as the best team in college football. Played really well in the second half. Played about as bad as it could have been in the first half. Like, look, Georgia played a combined B minus effort. They played
Mhm.
about an A in the second half, and they failed in the first half. And B minuses get degrees. I'll tell you that much. I know all about that
That's
number right
right.
there.
I was excited for a B minus, man.
Yeah, doing cartwheels in the street.
That's right.
And I'm honestly, I'm going to be doing a cartwheel in the street with the chlorine gas if the Braves win one game today. Mets will do the same if they win a game today. And I think honestly, we should just embody game theory, just both forfeit and just send the Diamondbacks home packing.
Dude, absolutely. I did actually see someone suggest that this is not a baseball podcast. We are not the biggest baseball guys in the world, but we do, we like our teams. But I saw someone mention on Twitter that they foresee this like the Diamondbacks basically being screwed because either the Braves or the Mets have to sweep for the Diamondbacks backs to get in over one of them. If they split, obviously it's the Braves and Mets that go in, and it's just going to be like whoever takes the lead in the first game is going to go all out for that first game and then not save any bullets in the chamber, which the other team is going to do for the second game. So like the Diamondbacks are really screwed, and it might actually end up being a little bit of game theory.
The Braves got to do it because then they just burn Chris Sale, and then like I mean
Yeah,
I don't even know who the heck would start at that point, and like the I don't even know who the heck they would start. It would start. It'd be like Max Fried on 4 days rest. I'm sure he'd be just a neurotic mess and would probably lose like 17-0 versus the Brewers or some dumbass like that. But yeah, I don't know. It's baseball's in the front of my mind. Obviously, I'm wearing Falcons stuff today because Young Quay Koo.
that's right. Dude, I honestly like this isn't to disparage anyone else on the Falcons. Young Wei Koo might be the best player on your team. That's just kind of what it is.
I'm sitting there. I'm like, Zach Robinson, what are you doing? We need 5 more yards to just throw the ball deep.
Sometimes you just gotta let it fly, man.
You have to. You got to soar like that Georgia Southern Eagle kicking field goals for you.
That's right.
Man, but yeah, I gotta go back to that. Like with AP Top 25, Georgia's probably properly rated, but again, I'm like they only fell to 5. I guess that makes sense. I don't like the fact that they keep like discrediting Penn State. I'm like, come on, this team's
Mhm.
better than Oregon. This team could beat Ohio State. They won't because it's James Franklin, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, in theory, in a vacuum, when you look at the rosters, they could beat Penn State. If you look at Andy Kotelnicki, they could beat Penn State. But then you get to the James Franklin of it all, and it gets a little hairy.
For sure. Again, I don't trust Mizzou either. I don't. I think at this point, like if you're undefeated in SEC play, like you got to be in the playoff picture at this point. You're through the
Yeah.
third of the season. That's fair. I have two teams that I think they aren't giving enough credit to. Iowa State and Indiana. I think
Mhm.
you were higher on Iowa State than me at the start of the year. Really like them out of the Big 12 right now. And then Indiana, they're just ripping darts with Coach Sig, man. It's great.
Dude, Coach Sig is becoming Just an absolute legend. I don't know if you saw that he sent an email after the game to the Indiana student body, and that game was super gross. Like it was rainy and not a fun time. It looked a little cold, quite frankly. And he sent out an email and he goes, I asked you to brave the weather and come out there and you did it, and we love you. Like basically just saying that like this is just the beginning and thanking the fans. Like and like this is a middle of or end of September game against Maryland that he's doing that. And I'm like, Coach Sig, I would lay down on my sword for you for sure.
Coach Sig, I would blow up Assembly Hall for you.
That's right.
I mean, I don't, you're more of a college basketball person to me, like considerably. What the hell is Indiana doing for like the last 20 years? Like, I don't understand what they're about and why anyone cares anymore. It's like what Texas and USC what were until very recently.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly a really good comparison. It's actually a better comparison would probably be Nebraska.
Oh
Um
God.
yeah, it's that kind of level. It's just like a lot of really bad coaching hires, a lot of unrealized promise. Like talent's never been an issue. We see Indiana guys get drafted in the NBA all the time, but like it always ends up where they never coalesce in Bloomington, and that's that's a tough scene for you if that's happening.
I'm right there with you. Yeah. Nebraska, being compared to Nebraska is not a good thing. And I
No.
mean, seeing red from that fan base, but I'll probably talk about Indiana a little bit later as well, possibly Iowa State. Any other thoughts about the AP Top 25 you want to just sink into before we move on?
The fact that Oklahoma rose in the rankings is wrong. It's just flat out wrong. This Oklahoma team should have lost to Auburn. Like that loss, like Auburn lost that game. Oklahoma did not win the game. And that's we've seen this time and again from this Oklahoma team. They are not that good. They are very much in danger of going into SEC play, like the heart of their SEC schedule, and absolutely just hitting rock bottom in their first year in the conference because the defense is good. It's not great in my opinion. Like Peyton Thorne had a big game in that in the win over Auburn. And that's Peyton Thorne. Once again, want to reiterate that fact. And on top of that, we watched I'm totally blanking on the kid's name, but the dude who replaced Jackson Arnold, he came in, looked awful, looked worse than Jackson Arnold for the first half, finally got it together, but this offensive line still isn't good. They still can't run the ball. Their wide receivers are depleted. I think they were without their top five wide receivers in this game. So like Oklahoma is not a top 20 team in the country right now. What are we doing?
Michael Hawkins Jr. And I was telling
Yes, thank you.
Alicia Daratola Castillo, like a childhood friend of mine's name is very similar, so I have to be very careful with how I say it. Uh, so I'm like, oh, they made the right decision because he scored like a 40-yard scamper initially, but Auburn sucks and they like driving in their truck. I have some thoughts about Auburn later for sure. It's gonna be a very heavy Auburn podcast for worse, I would assume. But Oklahoma, I'm like, I look at them like they're 4-1. Are you serious? No way.
I mean, like we're still like I understand that we're a third of the way into the regular season basically, but like at the same time, there's still a lot that we're going to learn about these teams. Like there's still a lot that's going to be shown. I wouldn't even say learn. Learn's probably like I think we know what we know about a lot of these teams at this point. Some teams are going to get better, some teams are going to get worse with attrition. But at the same time, like we know what the DNA of these teams are for the most part at this point. And Oklahoma's DNA is not one of a winning team, of a top 20 team. And so the fact that AP voters keep putting them in there to me, that reads like something, oh, Oklahoma's 4-1. Let's do that. And it's someone who hasn't watched this team play. Because if you've watched this team play, there's no way you're putting them in the top 20, much less the 12, maybe not even the top 25.
For sure. I mean, moving them up was strange and everything like that. I mean, Auburn's again not good. Oklahoma is going to be proven to be a very satin kimono wearing looking team. Yeah, Brent Venables is going to look very interesting. That satin kimono probably never won one before, and then that's when he turns a super villain. But here's what's going to happen in Dallas at the Texas State Fair of Texas a couple weeks from now. Steve Sarkisian is going to suplex Brent Venables into a vat of cooking oil, and they're going to cook him like a fried Oreo, but it's going to be a truly crispy Brent Venables.
Truly crispy, extra crispy. Yeah, some people pay extra for the extra crispy.
And they asked Sark, "Why'd you do it?" He said, "All gas, no brakes." And I was hungry.
All gas, no brakes, baby. That's right.
And we're gonna go all gas and no brakes here to playoffs. You kidding me? Yes, we're gonna go with our top 12 and our first four out. Definitely some major changes here. As do this every week, we go our first four teams, 12, and then 5 through 11, and then we'll finish up with 13 through 16. So, Cody, I think we probably have the same team at number one. Who do you have at number one?
Yeah, for right now, you got to have the Alabama Crimson Tide, man. And do I think this is where the playoff ends? Probably not. I think that, like we talked about on Saturday night, like there is going to be just cannibalism happening within the SEC this year. Like there's not a team that's going to go undefeated and emerge as a clear number one. So it's literally going to come down to the tiebreakers and who wins in Atlanta. That's what that seed is going to come down to. But right now, like Atlanta has done the most impressive thing that I've seen this season. And I think that's, or sorry, Atlanta. Alabama has done the most impressive thing that I've seen this season. And so, like, I do think that that gives them the number one seed at this point. We'll see where we end up. I'm honestly trying to predict how the SEC championship is going to play out 3 months or 2.5 months from now feels like a little bit of a fool's errand.
They're at the top of the college football world. I've got Alabama at one. I don't think you could really argue for anybody else. Atlanta's just fresh on our mind. I'm there. Braves play today. Falcons are good. Alabama would be number one if they cloned Young Wei Koo and it became Little Wei Koo and he's just
That's
kicking
right.
out there.
That's right. Younger Waku.
What was that kicker that was back? Like he was like his name was like Adam something. He was a little guy with like a tattoo back here. He was like adopted or something, but like he was he was before they handed out scholarships or whatever, and they kept putting him out there, and he kind of the Kenny Pickett and DJ of kickers.
Adam Griffith. Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes. A little way Koo or younger way Koo would be better than that. But yeah, Alabama's got to be one right now. They've got the best win in the country. I don't think it stays that way, but I feel very confident that they're a playoff team. That win's huge. I didn't think they'd have that. They could go 9-3 with that win and they'll get in.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. And honestly, based on what we saw, 9-3 is hard to see. Like I think 10-2 is might be the floor based on how good this team looked.
And I'm just saying 9-3 is like 9-3
Oh yeah.
Alabama, 9-3 Texas, 9-3 Georgia. I'll probably get in as like the 11, all things equal. So who do
Yeah.
you have at two?
At two, I've got Ohio State, and I still have my trepidation about Ohio State. Like, not in a serious way. Like, I don't think this team's bad. I think this team's very, very damn good. But they are not getting talked about in the same way that Oregon is, and maybe they should in a similar conversation. And the fact that they haven't played anybody. They played their first like real competition, and it was Michigan State, which is a team who is severely flawed. And even in the early stages of that game, Ohio State looked like they kind of got hit in the mouth a little bit and didn't know what to do because you've been playing Akron, you've been playing Western Michigan, you haven't been hit in the mouth at all. And they pulled it together and they got it done because I wrote this in the projected rankings for fansided.com, but I think that my trepidation really comes with Will Howard and what this offense is. Like I know that the playmakers, the skill position players are absolutely phenomenal and are going to carry Will Howard a long way, but at the same time, I still don't think Will Howard is that good. Like I don't think he's an upper echelon quarterback in college football. This defense is an upper echelon defense though, and I think this defense is going to keep them in whatever game they play in throughout the rest of the season.
I think that's fair. I think Jim Knowles needs to be a head coach next year. I don't know where he's going to go. I haven't figured that out yet. Everyone's like Lynch you, and I'm like, no, you're just the Ben Roethlisberger you have at home.
That's right.
Yeah, Jim Knowles is the DC I'd hire at this point right now. I don't know what it would be. Maybe he goes to Duke if Manny Diaz leaves after 1 year. He's too he's overqualified for that job.
Which we're finding out based on what Duke is doing this year.
Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting one too. Yeah, I've got Ohio State there as well. There's the same four people keep voting them number one, so I think we need to tell new hire and Ohio State fan Chris Landers to do a deep dive into what these four people's backgrounds are and see if we can dig up some dirt on them and expose them for being absolutely fraudulent.
See, my working theory, having not seen the votes, is that we're looking at four like Ann Arbor or East Lansing like area riders that are voting in the AP poll, and they're just trying to do the reverse jinx on Ohio State. Oh yeah, they're for sure the number one team in the country, and I think it's just a bit at this point.
So it's like Ann Arbor. It's Detroit Free Press, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah.
I don't hate that at all. That's actually pretty good.
I think again, I think it's just a bit.
Uh, the Big Ten energy is coursing through their veins like a heart attack. Who do you have at three?
Three Miami.
Yeah.
One of I think a lot of people came out of Friday night in that close game with Virginia Tech and thinking, okay, well maybe Miami's not that good because they really hadn't played anyone. Their best win was over a really, really bad Florida team. And so like maybe they thought it was a come like fall down to earth moment. But I took it as actually a really positive sign for Miami. That's a game they've lost in the past few years. Like that's a game they did not play well. And for most of that game, Cam Ward, he had his special moments and that make him Cam Ward, but he also like had some of the old Washington State DNA Cam Ward where he was just kind of throwing the ball up a little bit when he got pressured. And so I think the fact that they were able to pull out that win tells me a lot about this might just be Miami's year to finally get over that hump.
I'm right there with you. I mean, this is a huge rivalry game for both teams. This goes back
Hmm.
to their Big East days. This is one of the two rivalries they protected with conference realignment there in the ACC for Miami. They still obviously play Florida State. Virginia Tech, they play Virginia. I think they have another one too, if I'm not mistaken. They may have three, but they have at least those two. You're absolutely right. This is a game that Miami would normally lose. Mario would find ways to rip defeat out of the jaws of victory.
Yes.
Funny story. Okay. Bueller story time with Bueller. So there's a guy in my elementary school. He moved in. His name, ironically enough, was drink your coffee. Was Colton, so, of
Okay.
course.
Colton. Colton.
And we were playing soccer like in PE, and we're like, he's like, which one's our goal? He's like, oh, that's our goal. And he gets the ball and turns around and kicks like an own goal his first day at school. And everyone's like, do you know the rules of soccer? And he's like, we said that's our goal. I'm like, no, you got to defend your goal. So he was crying the rest of the day.
Oh, Colton. I'm guessing he did not go on to have an illustrious soccer career.
No, no, he did not. He's probably out there doing something with his hands professionally. I'll tell you that much.
He's always doing stuff. Shouts to Colton, always doing stuff.
Same doing stuff with my hands.
That's right.
Yeah, Miami's three. Now this is the really interesting one. Who do you have at four? Who's your Big 12 champion? Or do you have a Mountain West or group of five at four?
I do still have a Big 12 champion, and I'm going with Iowa State because right now
Yeah.
they look like the favorites to win the Big 12. I I'm getting to the point where I'm not sure there's a really good team in the Big 12. Like I think they might all just be like upper mid. Like that's kind of where I'm falling down on this. And like I think that Iowa State, more so than any other team that I've watched this year, particularly with Utah playing the game with Cam Rising again, that's gonna make me want to punch Kyle Whittingham right in the throat. Like this is just so frustrating to watch. But I think that, Iowa State with Matt Campbell and Rocco Becht in this team, they know who they are. They want to ugly the game up and they're totally fine with that. Like they beat a Houston team 23 to nothing and it was dominant, but it was still only 23 nothing. So it's not going to pop off the scoreboard, but that game was never in doubt. They were in control and the only game they really haven't been in control in this year was the Iowa game. And then they took control in the second half after not being in control and still won the game. So like I think this team knows what they are. I think they're disciplined and I think they're smart and like I think because of what the past couple years have looked like for the Cyclones, I think we started to underrate Matt Campbell a little bit, and Matt Campbell's still one of the best coaches in college football. And so, like, I just trust this team a little bit more than I do some of the other teams in the Big 12 at the top who I think are more severely flawed.
I have Iowa State at four as well. Hey, Rocco, Rocco,
Rocco!
Rocco. Yeah, I was just waiting to basically get Utah out of there with Isaac Wilson. I'm like, Cam, Cam Black Smith Rising is about as reliable as me and the Arizona State's cars combined. It's just he's as old as them too. That's the worst part.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, shout out to the RAV4 going back to the shop for alternative reasons.
Yay.
Uh, but Iowa State, like they've got the offense that they need to. And again, you're like, yeah, the Houston win wasn't dominant. Houston's probably the worst team in the Power Four. They are awful.
Yeah.
Why did you leave for besides money, Willie Fritz? Y- You're an idiot. That's so bad. And then they're horrific. But anyway, Iowa State is not horrific. They actually have a great defense. I think they've only allowed
Mhm.
29 points through 4 games, so a tick over 7 a game. I think their range is pretty substantial. They're scoring points. They've been the most consistent team through that point. I don't know where Tony the dog went. He's downstairs at this point, so we'll see what happens.
Shouts to Tony. We love Tony.
Tony. Yeah. Hopefully he can be left alone, as opposed to like Bosco, where he just goes and finds like the coffee pods and garbage bags. We'll see. He'll come up here in a minute. Hey Tony, there he is. Hey buddy.
Oh, little Toad. I see you, buddy.
Yeah. The nicest Boston Terrier I've ever met, which is great because those things are pretty high strung, but he's a great little buddy.
That's right.
Yes, Iowa State should be four because at this point, like I just don't feel comfortable enough with K-State or BYU or Utah, basically.
Yeah, it literally just comes down to the comfort factor, and I feel more comfortable with Iowa State than I do any team. Like I think Kansas State and maybe even Utah as well, maybe has a higher ceiling than Iowa State, but I trust the consistency of what the Cyclones can do a little bit more.
Okay. Um, let's go to 12.
Okay.
So I've got Boise State in there. I think Ashton Jeanty. UNLV got the win. I think they replaced him now. Even though UNLV is still undefeated, they beat the brakes off of Fresno State. This thing feels like it's teetering on one wheel and it's gonna crash at some point. Whereas Boise State, their only loss is to Oregon, which is a top 8 team. I think I would take the Broncos over the Rebels head to head whenever they do play.
Yeah, I still have Boise State as well. Ashton Jeanty putting up 1988 Barry Sanders numbers, 13 TDs and like 1,300 yards through four, or sorry, 800 yards and 13 TDs through 4 games. Like, that's not real. That's not a real thing that's happening. Love the kid. He's absolutely incredible. But I do think that I think Boise State had the thing that has impressed me the most over the past couple weeks is it seems like their defense, it might not be good, but it is fixed. It's not an active problem, which it was through like the first 2 weeks of the season. And once that's fixed, I have enough faith in this offense. Not necessarily Maddox Madsen, who I think is very much just a jag, but I think that you can rely on Ashton Jeanty in this offensive line to carry you really far. And with the defense playing at least a respectable level, I think that's gonna carry them to the top of the Mountain West.
Totally. Maddox Madsen, he's the guy in Cobra Kai that like he gets to be in the group because his dad pays for all the uniforms. He's not really tough. His dad's really famous. That's why. Maddox Madsen Chevrolet.
Maddox Madsen Chevrolet. Yeah, after watching Maddox Madsen, I do wonder what does Malachi Nelson look like? Because you couldn't beat out Madsen for the starting job. That's not great.
Probably looks like Marcus Mariota.
The current version of Marcus Mariota.
As soon as he was like, pineapple does not belong on a pizza, I'm like, you have no dog in you whatsoever. Live a little, man. It's fine. Just eat it. It doesn't matter. Just eat it.
It looks
Just
weird, but it tastes fine.
It was made by Canadians, and this is false start. Yes. So our first five are the exact same. Maybe six is the same. We may get some difference there between 6 through 11, but five is Texas, dude.
Yeah, five's Texas. We're no drama. I don't think we even really need to unpack it. They're doing their job. They have two quarterbacks who would start for 98% teams in the country. That's kind of what it is, and the rest of the roster is pretty damn good as well.
I will throw one thing out there. If Arch Manning has to start the rest of the year, they will lose 2 games just
Oh
because
yeah,
the the Quinn Ewers will be able to handle the pressure of like the Red Rivers of A&M of Georgia a little bit more just because he has more experience. He lives for those moments. But again, we it's more unknown with Arch. But right now, Texas looks like a playoff lock. They're firmly at 5. They look like they're on the pathway to get to Atlanta. We shall see. They're getting in.
Yeah, they definitely are. And I agree with you. And I think Quinn is coming back. I think they're just being precautious with him. And I think that they know that the experience when you're coming into this daunting SEC schedule that they have ahead, like they know that Quinn Ewers is the guy for that. But I do think like what Arch Manning does provide is we saw Malik Murphy come in and start a couple games when Quinn got hurt last year, and Texas looked a bit more shaky than they have with Arch Manning. And like, granted, the level of competition is different, but I do think that you do have like a bigger, better safety net with Arch Manning than you did before, which with Quinn Ewers, unfortunately, is important because he has proven he is a little injury prone.
I think that's fair. Who do you have at 6?
At six, I've got Georgia. I still think that
Okay.
Georgia is still right there. I still think that like I would not be surprised in the least if in a couple weeks we get, or in a few weeks we get Georgia beating Texas. Like that would not surprise me at all. I think that what we saw in the second half, that's what Georgia is. I don't think like sometimes it's college football. You have 20, 19 to 22 year olds. You're going to have dud halves. You're going to have games where the game plan you get caught off guard. As you get deeper into the season, Georgia's not going to get caught off guard by anybody, and they're going to have the dudes that can outmatch the other dudes on the opposite side of the ball. So I still have Georgia at six.
I think that's fair. I've got a team Georgia plays later in the year at Athens. I've got Tennessee at 6. I feel
Okay.
Tennessee's 4-0. They beaten the brakes off of, an NC State team that's not good. They've handled business versus an Oklahoma State team that wasn't good. Did let them come back in it. Oklahoma doesn't give up. I'll give Brent Venables credit there. Maybe he's not a hot seat candidate. They're playing hard for him. They've completely botched the quarterback recruitment, and that's going to hurt them considerably. Yeah, maybe firing Mike Gundy's brother for very good reasons probably didn't help you with recruiting in state.
Probably not. Yeah, I mean,
Totally
justified,
merited.
but not beneficial.
No, no, no. Yeah, Tennessee's looking like a playoff team. This team's going to go at least 10-2. They could even conceivably go undefeated. The problem is they've got three pretty tough games there with Arkansas, Alabama, and Georgia. I think that if they lose Arkansas, that could be a red flag. But at that point, like schedule sets up pretty quite nicely there for the balls. So
Mhm.
who do you have at 7?
The Vols. So we're
And
right
I
there.
and I have Georgia at 7 too. I guess with Georgia, it's just like I can't put them ahead of Tennessee right now because of the loss and that stuff. They have shown an ability to kind of sit down. Again, I think the coordinators are under fire a little bit too.
Mhm.
Glenn Schumann's not it. He'll probably go be a job. He'll go coach Colorado State like Bobo did, not work out, and Bobo's refuses to adapt.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bobo's a frustrating entity. Even as a non-Georgia fan, I'm like, there's very clear things that you could be doing that you are not, and it's quite infuriating to watch.
and it's frustrating, man. But so I think we got okay, 6 and 7. We have them flipped. Who's 8 for you?
Penn State. And I actually flirted with the idea of putting Penn State at six and then having Georgia at seven and Tennessee at eight. Like I think these three teams right now, to me, they are, I think they're almost all college football playoff locks for me at this point. I just think it's about, how things shake out, what they prove to me over the second or the last two-thirds of the season. But Penn State has shown nothing to me that has me worried. Like people were worried about the Bowling Green game. We talked about it on Saturday night. I think that's a little bit of a trap game. The defense looks like it is back firing on all cylinders. They have a lot of ways they can beat you on offense, and we know our boy Andy Kotelnicki. He
Oh, Nikki.
will he will find the ways to make sure that he's using whatever advantage he has to the team's advantage. So like I think this coaching staff, I honestly there is still the worry about James Franklin. I think that is very warranted based on his track record. But I think that the people he has around him in that building right now with Tom Allen, who obviously has a lot of head coaching experience, and Andy Kotelnicki, who is just a great offensive mind, I honestly think it might mitigate some of the James Franklin that we were accustomed to seeing.
Totally. James Franklin has gotten good coordinators. Obviously, Manny Diaz and Brent Pry, both of which having success in the ACC right now. Obviously, Manny Diaz the was Tom Allen. Tom Allen's going to go be a head coach in Florida somewhere, and
Hmm.
like he could go coach at like UCF or South Florida or something like that, and we'll have him go win like 10 games. Like he just needs to
Yeah.
go somewhere where his recruiting base is, and he'll be just fine.
No, absolutely.
And yeah, I've got Penn State at 8 as well. We talked about them on 3 yards to the cloud of punt over the weekend. I'm not so sure that Penn State's not the favorite to win the Big Ten right now. I think
Yeah.
that like they've got a lot of dudes right there. They look a little more battle tested and proven than Ohio State. Ohio State has had Penn State's number, so I'll give Ohio State credit there. But like if they were to face them in a rematch in Indianapolis, and it's not like at either Columbus or State College, just somewhere different, maybe that helps them
Mhm.
out too. Because Indianapolis helped the Dogs to get it past Bama, so I'm all in favor of the nail playing the hammer and beating them in Indy.
That's right.
Uh, Konecki, yeah, I have him
Got a
going to
niggy.
replacing Mac Brown. I'm all about that, dude.
Please God, please God, and he'll be at a place where they'll say Kotal Nikki, right? Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Konecki runs on bow time and goodies and sweet tea.
That's right.
A little bit of moonshine too. But I'm not.
That's right. That's right. Always. You got a
uh,
bootleg.
yeah. So who do you have at 9?
At nine, so this is where it got tough. 9 through 11 were I don't feel confident in any of these. But I went with USC. And
Ooh.
I think that it was for honestly the number 9 spot for me was between USC and Michigan. And who do I have more faith in moving forward long term? And to me, it's USC because we've seen this Michigan defense just kind of not live up. Like, I think it goes back to something I said in the preseason where I was wondering if Wink Martindale was a downgrade from Jesse Minter, and it looks like he definitely is. And I think Sharon Moore is obviously, I think there's no doubt about this, a downgrade from John Harbaugh. So, like, you look, or Jim Harbaugh, excuse me. The Ravens are on the mind from Sunday Night Football. I apologize. But I think that when you have those coaching downgrades and then you take the talent downgrade, you on offense, you're going to be playing with fire too much. Like you were in a game with Minnesota, and I understand you beat USC, so it is kind of like the like kind of spitting in the face of the result we saw in the field, but there's a world where Michigan still ends up losing 3 games in this season. Whereas I look at USC and their schedule and I think that, they flirted with a little bit of disaster this week. But I do think that when push came to shove against Wisconsin, they tightened up, they stopped turning the ball over, and they kind of ran away with it. Like they were down 21-10, I believe it was, and they ended up winning 38-21. So the defense clamped down and the offense got its head screwed on right. So I think that USC has a much clearer identity and a much more established and successful identity than Michigan does right now. So that's why I'm going to give them the slight edge there.
Okay, I think that's fair. I do not have USC in the top 12.
That's fair.
I have another Big Ten team there. Actually, I have two other Big Ten teams in the top 12. Number 9, I've got Oregon. I just kind of feel that like we haven't seen them play their best. They're still undefeated at that point. I feel that like Dan Lanning's going to get like another rib tat to kind of like fire his team up like Jason Terry. It's like, oh, we got a championship. Here's my son, Castor or Kaysen or Trident or whatever the hell it is, and he's showing his chest. It's got the college football playoff trophy.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
His wife's like, don't you put that on my throat. I've already got the Oregon O.
That's right.
I got to share something with you off air about this. That's really
Please do.
inappropriate, but really funny. Yeah, Oregon. I don't really have much to add there. Again, I didn't feel comfortable putting anybody 9 through 11. So who do you have at 10?
I have Oregon at 10. And
Okay.
I wanted to make a statement with this just because I just don't have faith in Oregon, man. I really, really don't. That UCLA team that they played on Saturday night, late night, thanks a lot for that, by the way. I really enjoyed staying up till 1 in the morning, having to re-up the rankings projections to watch you fart around with UCLA. Like, I just don't think that I don't think Oregon has the next gear that they had last year and that we thought they were going to have this year. Like the defense still is talented, but I still think there's some warts there that UCLA is just not a team that's going to be able to take advantage of. I think Dylan Gabriel is a step down from Bo Nix, which you know what I think about Bo Nix. So like that should tell you a lot about what I think about Dylan Gabriel right now. And so like I just don't have a lot of faith. And so like when I was putting together these projections, I wanted to put Oregon at a spot where they were the third or the fourth Big Ten team in, not the third.
Perfect. I'm all about fading Oregon in general. I mean, like they got a brand, but man, that is the Tevin Downey of football teams. It's all about going to
Yeah,
Houston's, selling sizzle and not steak. Apparently, you can't book reservations for odd number of people at Houston's anymore.
tough. That's real tough.
My mom tried to do that. She's like, we only seat two. I'm like, maybe they only have space for two. We want to bring three people there, like three adults, because Rosemary's coming for chicken fingers.
Dude, love chicken fingers. Chicken fingers are a classic.
Yes, where they probably eat a lot of chicken fingers. At my number 10 on Mizzou. I don't feel comfortable about that at all.
Hmm.
I hate putting them up there. It's the same thing with Utah. Like if they keep going at some point, like I said earlier in the program, if you're undefeated at this juncture in the SEC play, like you're gonna be playoff caliber in the mix. Same with a Big Ten team. Well, not no, not no, that's not true at all. Indiana.
Shouts to the Hoosiers, man. Coach Sig.
Coach Sig. Yes. I wonder if Indiana plays Mizzou this year and they lose. Mizzou's got a big game with versus Texas A&M. Very interesting to see how that game goes. Whoever wins that game, that's going to be huge for their playoff chances.
No, definitely. And I'm not real confident in Texas A&M either. So yeah, it's gonna be the game's gonna tell us quite a bit.
Finally, yes. Who do you have at 11?
All right, so you might want to just like sit a little deeper in your chair so you don't fall out for this one. Got the Clemson Tigers at number 11.
Ooh.
And I think that we may have overreacted to the Georgia game. And they got their heads kicked in by Georgia. There's no doubt about it. It was ugly. Everyone was watching. And so, like, I understand why they were penalized as heavy as they were. They've done nothing but beat the absolute S out of teams since that game. Like, they've just been absolutely rolling. And I think that when you see, when I was putting together these projections, like, and I got to that 9 through 11 range, there weren't a whole lot of teams that I was confident in. And like I really like could say full throatedly, like you said with Mizzou, like we said with Oregon, like we said with USC or Michigan or any of these teams, there's not anyone where I'm just like, yeah, I know what this team is. I know what Clemson is. And I think Cade Klubnik is getting better. I think that this defense is still very damn good and is going to cause a lot of problems. And then on top of that, you look at what the ACC is doing right now. There's a chance that Clemson comes out of this at 11-1. And if they are 11-1 or even, 11-2 if they go to the ACC championship and lose and don't get that automatic qualifier spot, that's still probably good enough to sneak you into the back end of the playoff, especially with the name brand of Clemson. So I think that the path for Clemson to get in the playoff is a lot clearer than I realized before I started digging into it this week.
Yes, Alicia Ardeo Castillo put them in like the number 11 last week. I'm not quite that bold this week, but they're certainly knocking on the door for me. I'm right there with Clemson. Georgia loss looks better, even with Georgia losing to Alabama. But again, it's non-conference. You could run the table. And at that point, you're basically looking at potentially two ACC teams getting in with some combination of Miami, Clemson, Duke, essentially. Maybe Pitt.
Yeah.
Pitt catches fire, but like I don't trust Pitt either. So yeah, I do not have Clemson in, but I have Michigan in at 11. I feel that
Okay.
it's like Mike Vrabel, Arthur Smith, Tennessee Titans. They figure out an identity. They play great defense. They run the ball. Khalil Mullings is looking fantastic. I said he's probably the favorite for the Doak Walker, completely forgetting about Ashton Jeanty because it was 1:30 in the effing morning.
Yeah, you're
Uh,
forgiven. I threw Ashton Genty's name out there just to cover our bases there, but don't blame me at all for forgetting about him at that hour of the morning.
no, it's okay. But yeah, I've got Michigan in. I feel that like the USC win helps them sustain the loss to Texas a little bit more. I don't really know what's in store with them in Big Ten play, but right now I feel that they'd be a pretty tough out there at 11, more so than Clemson. So yes, we'll recap our 12 and then we'll go first four out.
Yeah,
So
so I've got Alabama at 1, I've got Ohio State at 2, I've got Miami at 3, got Iowa State at 4, got Texas at 5, Georgia at 6, Penn State at 7. Oh God, my notes just crapped out on me. At 8, I have okay. I'm looking at the AP Top 25 to get this now. At 8, I had no 8. I had Penn State. Who did I have at 7? Do you remember? I don't. Tennessee.
seven you had Tennessee, eight you had Penn State. Yes, then nine
8,
you
8 Penn
had
State, 9 USC, 10 Oregon, 11 Clemson, 12 Boise State. We're back on track. We got it, boys.
Yes, we are back on track right now. Phone's blowing up. Apologies for just staring down. Yeah, the weather's not good outside right now, so freaking
It's
out a little
not.
bit about the. No, no, it's like, yeah, don't go out there. You're gonna be breathing toxic stuff.
Oh
It's
God.
delightful. I got a dog that poops 4 times a day, so that's gonna be great. So my top 12 are Alabama, Ohio State, Miami, and Iowa State getting your first round buys. Texas 5, Tennessee 6, Georgia 7, Penn State 8, Oregon 9, Missouri 10, Michigan 11, Boise State 12. Let's just say our first four out pretty quickly, and we'll kind of move on because we gotta keep time.
Yeah, so I got Mizzou, I got Michigan, and then I have Notre Dame, and then I have whoever you want to put in there. I guess Kansas State, but like I 16, like the last of the first four out, I could not care less at this point.
That's fair. I've got Clemson's first team out, Ole Miss second team out, third USC, four Notre Dame, and then I nearly put BYU in there. That's kind of where my head's at.
Mm, yeah, shouts to BYU and Jake Retzlaff. Did not see this coming at all.
It's not BYOB University. What if imagine if somebody like applies there thinking it's BYOB University? They show up and it's not that. It's a Be Yourself University.
Yeah, and yourself is a very strict code of conduct.
You must keep your hands and your thoughts to yourself in this false start.
Hey, shouts to BYU though. Drove by it on the way back from Yellowstoning. Went through Provo.
Yeah, I guess it's got to be closer there. I don't really know it. I guess it's more the northern part of the state, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not well, I mean we drove through the entire state of Utah. We stayed a night in Moab on the way back down. So yeah, we did a whole lot of stuff.
I just know Salt Lake's on the Great Salt Lake, which is kind of near the bottom, close to the Four Corners, is from math or whatever. As the Four Corners residents, you probably know about that. Have you done the four things yet?
We have not gone to do the Four Corners. The NC State podcast is not really into that type of stuff. Like she likes going out and hiking, seeing national parks and stuff like that. I was like, let's go to the Four Corners. That'd be cool. And she's like, I don't really want to. And it's not really, it's like a 6 hour drive that I really don't want to make by myself.
That's fair. We'll just look at the Arizona State podcast out there and show like a TikTok video.
There we go. That's what we need.
Yes. Let's just move on because kind of done talking about those teams. We're not patting the dock. That's wrong. We are gonna go with where my sheet on here. I sent this to you, not me. That's probably the problem here. So yes, we are going to move on to it's getting hot in here. Yes, I'm going to get myself fired here. Five hottest seats in college football. I know you said you did Tony Romo levels of prep for this. I had 9 guys that are feeling the heat. So I'll just throw some guys out there. Maybe we just go as far as we go and kind of the same sort of thing. Hottest seat in college football right now for me. That's Hugh Freeze. That's looking
Okay.
pretty bad right there at Auburn. Probably talk about Hugh Freeze in a second. They're a 23 and a half point dog at Georgia, a place they haven't won since the Bush administration. Doesn't matter which one. They're about to be 2-4. I saw somewhere like after the Oklahoma loss that like they still got to play Georgia and Alabama.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not looking great for Hugh Freeze right now. Like we'll unpack Hugh Freeze a little bit more in just a second, but I have him on the hot seat, but I do it's an interesting situation there in Auburn.
Yeah, I know. He's running out of favor. You know, you hired a snake and you wonder why all your chicken's eggs are gone.
Sorry, my dog was just eating a clump of dirt.
Is he a snake too?
Apparently, but like I heard him crunching and I looked and it's just a piece of dirt on the ground. So I guess that's better than an alternative.
So we did the Harry Potter thing with Alicia. We sort of houses. Yeah, you're Ravenclaw. We've established that before.
Yes.
Uh, Huron is Gryffindor.
I Huron's a Hufflepuff,
Yes.
brother.
Remus is Slytherin.
Yes, correct. Absolutely.
Uh, Izzy is Slytherin. Benji, he's not brave. He's a Hufflepuff too.
Yeah, Huron has Gryffindor breed with Hufflepuff genes.
The anti-Ron, obviously.
Exactly.
Uh, Biggio was pretty brave with the Hurricane. He didn't hide his powder room, so he doesn't have a long bottom. So maybe he's Gryffindor. I don't know.
He doesn't have a long bottom.
That's true. So who's the hottest seat for you?
Dave Aranda, man. It's done. Like we're done at Baylor. This has got to go. I just think that you brought in DeQuan Finn, who is a guy we were high on, and he's not been very good. You play Sawyer Brown in this game against BYU, looks better, but that's even more of an indictment on Dave Aranda because you were playing the wrong quarterback after you went and got a guy that was supposed to, help with this, help your program get back on the right track. Like, I just think this is cooked. I don't think he's a head coach, at least not now, not at this point in his career.
I think that's fair. I have Dave Aranda too. A couple of weeks ago they're playing Utah. And he's like, he's talking about killing on the sidelines. Maybe he wears like the Ryan Williams kill everybody thing because he has no idea who he is. So he's copying the identity of a 17-year-old who should be taking AP Calc.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, the Zen Master is it doesn't seem very Zen right now.
When he says everything's in, it's like it's everything's in like the Bush song. We're like, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about, Kevin Rossdale. It doesn't even make any sense.
It's everything Zen like with a Y, like the little lip packies. He's just ramped up on nicotine.
There's some right there. This I even
Yeah.
lying. I thought about putting it on the camera. I'm like, no, I can't do that. It's
Nah,
not
nah,
a
no free ads, no free ads.
no, no free. It's just rum ham, bird hats, and Vermont Catamounts shirts
That's right.
with bushes. Everything's in. Dave's on sale again. Dave Brady might be looking for another job.
Yes, correct.
So who's got the second hottest seat for you?
This is probably my personal feelings coming to this, but Mac Brown, it's done, man. We're like you're trying to quit. You're like already trying to quit. My spirit animal, Bud Elliott, suggested that maybe the second half of the Duke game was him quiet quitting. Maybe that was, him making a statement. I don't know, but like this has run its course. We've got to get this. We've got to get out of here because like even though Mac Brown has in North Carolina football, even before Mac Brown has traditionally fallen short of expectations, it's different than just a team that looks completely hapless right now, and that's kind of what we're dealing with.
I've got Mac Brown coming up a little bit later. He's kind of quiet quitting like Peter Gibbons in Office Space. He's cutting
Yeah,
down his cubicle, playing Tetris, gutting fishes, throwing it on some TPS reports. But the Jordans look immaculate. That's the only thing he cares about right now.
that's right.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, brother. I'm here for you. But yeah, it's getting cooked there. So Dave Aranda's my two. My three is Billy Napier. Just because you beat Mississippi State, who's hellacious ass, and you went on a bye, uh, you might lose to UCF, and we might be going there with Antonio this week. I think that might be the pick for UCF Florida.
Oh yeah, that's our boy Antonio has Florida man energy, just screaming out of every orifice in his body. So it's that's definitely a possibility. I have Billy Napier is three as well. I think that look, the Mississippi State win's a band-aid. Like you have to like I think the only difference was he may have bought himself a few more weeks, maybe he bought himself time till the end of the season, but like if he'd have lost that game, he probably would have been fired going into the bye week. Like that's the only difference.
Yeah, he and Scott Strickland both would have been fired. It's like he lost to Mississippi State, and Strickland lost to your alma mater. But we'll see what happens there. I think they've got Kentucky, UCF, and Tennessee coming up pretty quickly, and none of those games look easy.
Mm-mm. Nope,
No,
unfortunately not.
they might go over and be having a bad time, and might get fired at the cocktail party. So yeah, Billy Napier is three. Mac Brown is my four.
Okay. Okay. I think that makes sense. And I mean, like I said, it's time. Like I think all of the we're to the point in the season now where everyone we're mentioning here is like actually in danger of getting fired. It's not like okay, they're in a precarious spot. Like this is what you're doing is clearly not working at this point.
Who do you have? Who do you have it for?
So that's where I have Hugh Freeze. And
Okay.
I think again, we'll unpack Hugh Freeze a little bit more in the next segment. So like I don't want to go too deep into this, but like it's bad. The in-game coaching looks really bad right now, and that's kind of why I have him on the hot seat. Like there are excuses I will make here shortly, but like I do think that the in-game coaching has me a little bit worried about what this is going to look like long term.
I think they're a major coaching deficiency. They don't have the players, the alumni, the fan base is fractured. You're not getting this right. I don't really know who you get. At this point, like I think you got to try to get Matt Rule. I think Matt Rule is the right guy for that job. Because
Mm.
Matt Campbell won't leave for that.
No, no, absolutely not.
I don't think maybe Deion Sanders if he keeps winning at that point, but like even then, I'd lean Matt Rule a little bit more because he can fix anything.
He can. I mean, he's fixing Nebraska as we speak, so it's quite impressive.
And to be fair, Carolina Panthers, the only thing that can fix them is Andy Dalton, and they kind of look okay.
It's quite an indictment of Bryce Young what Andy Dalton is currently doing.
Like Bryce Young, if he was on this call, I'd be sitting on a booster seat too.
That's right. Yeah, you gotta step up to the podium.
So yeah, the top four we have out is pretty easy. The next guy off is I couldn't really figure it out. I ended up going with Ryan Walters at Purdue, number five. They
Okay.
just fired Graham Harrell. It's looking really bad there in West Lafayette. You also have to factor in this. The Boilermakers just played for a national championship with Matt Painter and Zach Edey, the Luka Garza you have at home.
The Luka Garza. Yes, correct.
And Mike Babinski is not a bad AD. He had a lot of success there at Georgia Tech, with Paul Johnson stuff like that. And we saw what happened with Jeff Brom. I don't know who you get to come over. Maybe get Drew Brees to be your head coach because at this point, like
Ooh.
anything's better than what you're seeing out of Ryan Walters. He may have got this job too soon, and I'm a little afraid about that. He's got the idea of like a head coach, but like 30, early 40s. He needs to go be a coordinator again. Maybe go take over at Colorado at some point when he's really ready.
Yeah. We know Drew Brees will take the job because he'll do anything for money. So just put a paycheck in front of him and he'll be there. So I don't hate that at all. I have PJ Fleck. I just think that this whatever he was selling that worked early at Minnesota has kind of run its course. I think I've mentioned this before, but it kind of reminds me of like Jim Harbaugh of 10 years ago, something like that, where we saw Jim Harbaugh basically stay everywhere for 4 to 5 years and then move on to the next spot. And it's kind of because he wore out his welcome. And I think PJ Fleck has a little bit of that in him. Maybe he still has a little more maturing to do to grow past that, like I think Harbaugh has at this point. But I do think that it's very clear it's not working. And I think that, well, you look at Callie McManus going over to Rutgers and playing really well, and how bad he looked at Minnesota, it does start to look like it's a Minnesota problem and not a quarterback problem.
Yeah, Fleck's been there about 7, 8 years or stuff. And the problem with him is like he's got to be in that like Midwestern footprint. The only other place I think he could go besides like the Big Ten or the MAC, maybe a few Big 12 schools, is Cal because he played for the
Mhm.
Niners very briefly. If Justin Wilcox were to leave, we talked about him with his little man suit out there looking all there. He could probably he could do pretty good at Cal, but he was a dishonorable mention along with Mike Norvell, Dave Clawson, and Deshaun Foster. That's kind of where I kind of ended the hot seat watch right now.
No, yeah, Deshaun Foster was up there as well for me, just because like this is real bad.
I'd honestly rather have Troy Aikman like call Monday Night Football and coach. Like if Kirk Herbstreit could do 2 gigs, he could do 2 gigs. Go Doug Gottlieb on us, dude.
That's right. Yeah, something's got to change because this ain't it.
This ain't it for sure. And looking across at the next one, it may not be it at Auburn. Let's do some do Hast here for a second with Hugh Freeze. Is he the first head coach fired? And could he potentially get fired after Deep South's oldest rivalry in Athens this weekend?
I'm gonna go Duhas two S's, and the reason why. First off, trying to figure out when Auburn's going to fire someone is not the easiest task in the world because that's might be the most reactionary group of boosters that have ever lived. So like it's very difficult to fully like say that with confidence, but I do think that my big thing with Hugh Freeze is yes, the coaching on the field looks bad. Yes, you obviously like put yourself in this position by not going and getting an upgrade at quarterback in the transfer portal. But the fact that the AD and that the administration was okay with that tells me that there is some sort of long-term plan. Like they have, high-end recruits coming in at quarterback. They can hit the portal this offseason to upgrade quarterback. And the rest of the roster is not playing well, but there are dudes there. There is like hope and development there. So like I do think that there is a plan that's being sold, not publicly, but behind closed doors, just based off reading the tea leaves of what this team and what Hugh Freeze has been doing. That I think that if Hugh Freeze was worried about job security, then we would have seen a different course of action this offseason, if that makes sense. Like, yes, it's going to be painful this year. Like, I don't think it's going to turn around this year because you just don't have the guys on the roster to do that. But I do think, like, there is a very real world where I see this turning around, assuming that the end game head coaching stuff. Now, if the talent gets there and the roster looks more complete and it still doesn't turn around, then yes, he's gone, obviously. But I do think that he is going to be given the grace period to try and figure this out because I think like the way he's operated has been operating like someone who has a long-term vision for what this is going to look like and frankly had a lot of pieces to clean up when in doing this.
I think that's fair. For content purposes, I wanted to go do Host 1S because it would be hilarious. But you've changed my mind very quickly. It's do Haas 2S's on both accounts for the reason you said, like they may have a plan in place, but more importantly, Auburn is. You think Auburn's going to ever do anything on your time? No, they're on Auburn
No.
time, dude. It's like Columbus and Phoenix City, like Phoenix City, Alabama, just on the other side of the Chattahoochee. Uh,
Hmm.
they keep Eastern time, even though Auburn's in Central time, because it's in the Columbus, Georgia metroplex. So it's really
Oh
confusing.
God.
Yeah, we know Cody's all about time zones, but not at all. Didn't no, we don't do time zones here. I'm gonna say do Haas with two S's for real though, because like again the boosters are wacky. You've got Yellowwood money and you've got Tim Cook of Apple who's there now. You
Yeah.
also have some of your biggest athlete stars. Cam Newton is a graduate and has a lot of money. Charles Barkley, I don't know if he graduated, he has a lot of money. May not be doing, he can maybe go to be a booster. Frank Thomas probably has a lot of money, and Bo Jackson, I think, still probably has some. So if they were kind of to come together and say, hey, I think we can get Deion Sanders, they could probably, like those four athletes, again, Cam Newton grew up watching Deion Sanders, is from Atlanta, and the other three are peers of Deion. Like
Hmm.
they could make that work. I think if they could convince Tim Cook to front that and to hell with Yellowwood because that's clearly what's driven this thing in the bus for God knows how long.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. It's no, I do think first off, you mentioned Charles Barkley and I've got to say it because it comes into my head every time he gets mentioned around Auburn. My favorite Charles Barkley quote, maybe my favorite athlete quote ever, was on Inside the NBA one night. They asked Charles Barkley what his GPA was at Auburn and he said 20 points, 14 rebounds. So I don't know if he graduated at all, but I do think that you're right. Like Auburn has the money, and like the Yellowwood money has put them in some bad situations over the past few years. And so like I do think like having more voices in the room to get the right people in there is the right move. But I do think like at the end of the day, the fact that this is out of character for Hugh Freeze, and I don't, his character is not high in terms of the sense of character, but I mean in terms of like what we've seen from him as a college football coach, he's won everywhere he's been, and so the fact that that's the case, and we're seeing this fail so spectacularly right now, is why what lends me to believe that he is selling a vision, he's selling a long-term plan to kind of rebuild what Harson tore down in a way. So like I do think that we are going to be trending up and we're going to be trending up quickly with Auburn in 2025 and 2026.
I think you gotta give it a little more time here, but like they gotta like take the portal seriously. They gotta swing for the fences there because they're not gonna get the recruiting they need. This is just penetrating their recruiting so deeply. And Auburn usually recruits top 10, 15 or whatever across the country, but like they gotta swing for fences in the portal. If they can't do it, then that's too bad. Gonna move on to our penultimate topic with some you're doing great, sweetie, with Florida State. Yeah, I saw this on Reddit CFB, and they're 1-4 because they just lost to SMU badly. in Dallas. Their only win was by 5 points over Cal, which that's what Cal does. They lose to winless teams in conference play. So Florida State needs to win what? Four of their final seven games. And okay, you'd have to you'd have to beat UNC, Charleston Southern, and Florida. And okay, you get those three. And then they gotta win two more of the games between, make sure I got this right. It's on the sheet. They have to beat two of the following four: Miami, Notre Dame, Clemson, and Duke. Oh, God.
Yeah, first off, wild that Duke is part of that sentence. But second off, like they're not beating any of those teams. They're not a good football team. They got their brains beat in by SMU this past week. Somewhat Florida State got a safety because SMU's long snapper just sailed one into the stands when SMU was backed up into their own end zone. And someone called it the best play by Florida State all season. And like that's where this team is at. It is very, very bad. The fact that they're still starting DJU, like that is the one reason why I'm not like totally ready to write them off. I'm pretty ready to write them off, but like I'm not like it's like 95% instead of 100% ready to do that just because at some point you are going to have to make a change from DJU. Like this is just clearly like it's one of the worst quarterbacking seasons I've seen from a high level P4 team in my recent memory. And the fact that we're sitting here watching this is like he's not even like an Alex Orgy. Like we know Alex Orgy can't throw the football for Michigan, but DJU can't run either. Like he just can't do anything functional right now, and it is really bad. So like you have to put Brock Glenn in at some point soon to have any hope of winning the 5 games that you need to get into a bowl game.
You also got to remember, Miami is looking really good right now.
Mhm.
UCF is, they're really making it work. I mean, they may have lost, but like whatever, like they look like a Power Four team now. Like they've got a spot. They
Yes.
feel like they belong in the Big 12, whereas Houston doesn't. BYU does, and Cincinnati is starting to figure it out too a little bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They got the kid from Indiana, Sorsby, which makes even
Sorsby.
Indiana's success even more, awesome to watch with Coach Sig because like you lost a quarterback who's looks pretty damn good and you're not missing a beat.
For sure. I was thinking about this with from your perspective. So yeah, North Carolina, Dallas, and everything like that. Those are your teams. So I don't know how like I know from like a UNC football fan, Clemson's like the one you like the least. You
Yes,
despise
correct.
Clemson. Then it's kind of like, Duke, NC State. But Florida State kind of is one where it's like Alabama, you don't like them very much either. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
So this probably feels the same way for you with like the Eagles just falling just on absolutely dire times. It's the same thing with FSU. It's like they're both just pretty pathetic right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to relish in. We'll put it that way.
What if they DJU they gave him like the bag and they got to cover this up because if they bench him, it's going to be some sort of like hellacious scandal.
Just put Big Dave in at quarterback. That'll solve it. We'll be fine.
He's got 4 years of eligibility.
That's right. We're ready to rock.
Since when does Uyunglele want to run the ball? Since he became his dad. Oh my
Oh
God.
my God.
You know The Replacements, the movie where like they took the guy from prison and they made up like a fake name so he could play on Sundays.
Yes.
We gotta watch that movie at some point and also come up with a segment from that movie as well.
Oh, absolutely. They're a phenomenal movie. Might watch it this afternoon, frankly, after the Braves Mets.
I might be doing that. I might need something to pick me up or, to celebrate with, with some Keanu Reeves.
That's right.
Any other Florida State's thoughts? If not, we'll move on to our last topic.
It's just I think the biggest shock for me is that the defense is also bad. Like that's kind of going under the radar because DJU's taken so much heat, but like you gave up 42 points to SMU, and I think SMU with Kevin Jennings at quarterback is a lot better, but like you're Florida State, man. You shouldn't be giving up 42 to SMU. Like that's just not a thing that should be happening.
I think Antonio needs to go to Tallahassee and help Adam Fuller make a new resume because he's going to need it. You just give him, it's like, sir, this is just a coloring book. He's like, Bulldog. It's still better than
Bulldog,
whatever you
yeah.
have.
A color, if you can color in the lines, that's more than I think of you right now.
I mean, why do you think he got Zorro? He just showed him that clipper and he's like, oh, this is great.
That's right.
You'll be perfect for this role. The women are gonna love you.
Oh my God.
And I don't know what Antonio's opinions are about the Gallagher brothers, but we're going to move on to some definitely maybe for the last segment of today's show. With some definitely maybe, let's each give like a team or two we think that definitely maybe might be good through the first month of the season.
Yeah, so I'll start, and it's a team you mentioned earlier, but Pitt might be good, man. Eli Holstein might actually be a guy we've seen. I think the one thing that we've seen in Pat Narduzzi's tenure is that when he is willing to kind of take a step back from his DNA as a coach and just kind of adapt to whatever his personnel is, that's when Pitt's been most successful. That's when they were really successful with Kenny Pickett recently. And even prior to that, like we've just seen that when you don't have an Aaron Donald level player on your defense and you don't have that type of defensive front, that is the kind of thing that really allows Pitt to reach a ceiling that we didn't see. And it kind of seems like what they're doing. Like, do I trust them? No. They're gonna pit. Pitt's gonna pit, and they're not gonna be playing for an ACC championship or anything. But this team is good. This team is going to put a scare into teams that are probably better than them because I think that they know who they are and they're playing really well. And Holstein is taking full advantage of his opportunity.
Too legit, too legit to fit.
That's right.
uh, yeah, very much a Falcon song back when MC Hammer was a fan of that team back in '91. I gotta share this with you. They did like a documentary about the '91 Falcons, and they had like Chris Miller and Jesse Tuggle and Jerry Glanville were like watching it.
Oh my God.
And they made a trophy called the California State Champs because this is back when they played the Rams and the 49ers in NFC West play. I think they also beat the Chargers too, and I think the Raiders because that's how the schedule lined up. So they went 6-0 over the NFC West
Oh my God.
or California. Saints were good that year too. They had Dome Patrol. I remember that. So it was just a ridiculous anomaly, and they ended up losing the divisionals to like Washington, who won the Super Bowl that year. But yes, I I like the Pitt pick. That's pretty good. Did not have them there. I mentioned Iowa State and Indiana as well. Think that those teams kind of know who they are. They got good quarterback play. We could talk about them a little bit more, but I'm gonna go Rutgers. Yeah.
Okay, no argument for me here, man. The shouts to Scott Rogus. The Scarlet Knights look good.
Yes, first time they've been 4-0 in a long time. They know exactly who they are, even pivoting off Gavin Wimsatt, who has been a huge help with giving Kentucky an offensive identity because Brock Vandagriff's not really doing that. But they can run. It's like, well, you're gonna get beat up. It's like, well, we got this dude back here, so we're gonna run with him and stuff. So what I would say is with Rutgers beating Washington in a game that like came down to really good coaching. Rutgers is very comfortably a bowl team. They may win about 8 games right now. They are exactly who we kind of thought they would be entering the season. They've lived up to the hype, even though no one's talking about them.
No, 100%. And yeah, I mean they're gonna put up a fight no matter what they do. Like I think that Greg Schiano kind of doesn't get his due as a head coach. Like winning at Rutgers is like legitimately in our lifetimes, we've not seen anyone but Greg Schiano win at Rutgers. And this is the second time he's done it. So like that that's pretty damn impressive.
He is the Scarlet Knight. He's not the Dark Knight. He's the
That's
Scarlet
right.
Knight.
Oh my God.
He looks like the Red Scare from Watchmen. He's out there looking like with like a red balaclava over his face, eating Cheetos out of a bag, like Red Scare. They're a big revolting bluff. Uh,
Oh my God.
Duke definitely maybe might be good too. That's also, I
Yeah.
know you probably don't want to say that either, but there's a lot out there. I definitely like the Pitt pick. Eli Holstein, maybe A&M wishes he still had him or Alabama, but they got Jalen Moore. They don't care. They don't
No,
care
they
at
don't.
all.
They don't care at all. They're totally fine. They'll survive. They've who's the kid that DeBoer brought with him from Washington? Austin Mack, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, yeah, that Alabama's got an embarrassment of riches. They'll be okay, I promise.
And we'll be okay, I promise. This was episode 113 of Fall Start. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter or the X at Buhler118. You can follow Cody Williams at the Sizzle 20. You can follow the show at CFB False Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Leave a comment, like that stuff on YouTube. Give us a 5-star review on Apple. That would be really cool. We'll give you a high five. Like Cody and I will do an air high five, or like we'll high five each other when we get a 5-star review. That'll be really cool. Yeah, we got through week 5. We're on to week 6, and October is tomorrow. So Q4, buckle down, man. Hunker down.
Yeah, dude, I'm hunkered down whether I want to be or not. My back's breaking, so we're doing great.
I know we're doing great, man. I don't know if I'm here or there, but I know that this was full start.